Today we bring you part 4 in our 5-part series on America's radical rulers, those men and women with extreme agendas who are holding power in Washington, D.C. Right now, we'll look not at the Obama appointees themselves, but behind them to the man on whose shoulders many of them stand, the radical Saul Alinsky.
Saul Alinsky, who lived from 1909 to 1972, was a community organizer from Chicago long before Barack Obama was. In fact, he wrote the book for community organizers, a book called Rules for Radicals, published in 1971, which he dedicates to an unusual individual.
Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky is dedicated to Lucifer. That the dedication page says to the first one who rebelled against the establishment and won his own kingdom, Lucifer.
A committed Marxist, Alinsky grew up in a rough part of Chicago and worked hard to implement social justice as he understood it. He believed that the end justified the means. Author and speaker William J. Federer.
This idea that Saul Alinsky adopted is the end, your agenda, you're convinced is so good, any means necessary to get there is okay. Lying, voter fraud, intimidation, bribery, threats, anything. Matter of fact, one of the rules says that you hold your opponent to a higher level of moral conduct, where your only level of moral conduct is whatever it takes to win. President Barack Hussein Obama studied Saul Alinsky and taught him for several years at the Saul Alinsky Institute.
Author Brandon House, who organizes Worldview Weekend conferences, often speaks on the influence of Saul Alinsky.
That phrase changed was his campaign slogan.
We're going to change this country and change the world.
We need change. Real change.
Change has not come fast enough.
That's found on almost every page of Rules for Radicals. The word community organizer comes from Saul Alinsky's book. And by change, Saul Alinsky means a revolution. Saul Alinsky said we need to have a socialist, communist revolution. We need to do away with private property, free enterprise, free market, capitalism. And he said, but we do it over time, and we do it by penetrating every institution and changing their worldview. We pit the haves against the have-nots. We get the class envy going. We also stir up, very sadly what they've done today, racial disharmony.
Alinsky's influence even helped to create ACORN, the nation's largest urban activist organization. Successful lawsuits against ACORN have found it guilty of subverting the electoral process.
The organization ACORN was born out of the Saul Alinsky model, which today ACORN, you know, is making national news for being involved in all kinds of things, from voter fraud to welfare fraud to all kinds of things. But there are many organizations like ACORN, and they're getting federal money, these organizations. Much of the stimulus money has been used for a personal slush fund, in my opinion, to use for these community organizing organizations.
While many people want to resolve conflict and controversy, Saul Alinsky relished it as a way to achieve power.
First rule of change is controversy. Change means movement, and movement means friction, and friction means heat, and heat means controversy.
Alinsky's influence was made obvious early on in Obama's presidency by his staff.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
When it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it. It can have a very positive impact.
Another rule for radicals that Saul Alinsky articulated was to use ridicule. He said, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. It is almost impossible to counterattack ridicule. Also, it infuriates the opposition, who then react to your advantage.
Now people say, gee, who did they use this tactic against? Well, Sarah Palin. Here she is, immensely popular, probably one of the most popular modern political figures, and they have taken this attitude of singling out and trying to ridicule her.
I can see Russia from my house. Mother, moose hunter, bridge to nowhere supporter, ethics committee dodger, Alaska secession booster.
Alinsky also believed that you could achieve your radical goals by demonizing the opposition. He states, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. The real action is in the enemy's reaction. The enemy, properly goaded and guided in his reaction, will be your major strength. Tactics, like life, require that you move with the action.
And you see that happening today where the administration is going after people that disagree with them. You have the former TSA nominee who's withdrawn now saying that, hey, the big threat to America is people who are anti-abortion and anti-government. Well, what does he really mean? People who are pro-life and who are conservative and are not for big government.
The Bible says that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is reproach to any people. So what can we do to combat the influence of Saul Alinsky?
This is a biblical worldview battle. So how do we fight back? We fight back by teaching biblical worldview. What does the Bible say about law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion?
While Saul Alinsky and his followers would appear to be motivated by caring for the poor, critics charge that what they really want is political power, and they will use any means necessary to seize it.
You take on the persona of being for the people, when reality is you're only for yourself. You're only for power. Because reality is you're destroying the people. You're stealing their wealth. You're creating chaos.
It's quite disturbing, as we've just seen, that the influential book Rules for Radicals was dedicated to Lucifer, who Saul Alinsky calls the original radical. The scriptures have another name for Lucifer, the father of lies. And yet many of the key players in our government today were shaped and influenced by Saul Alinsky and his book. Do you know who those players in Washington are? Do you know the names and positions of those who are pushing America towards socialism? We want you to have those facts for yourself, to pass them on to others, and in a moment, I'll tell you how you can get them.